When you hear the name Ferrari, what do you think of? Power, right? Luxury, perfection. It's this symbol of ultimate success, a sleek red blur on the racetrack, and a total masterpiece on the street. But to really get what Ferrari is all about, you can't just look at the car. You have to understand the man who basically bled for it. Let's get into his story.
Today, the Ferrari brand is a global titan. We're talking at an estimated net worth of a staggering $85 billion. But that shiny, perfect image, it hides a story that's way darker, way more complicated, and honestly, a lot more fascinating.
You see, the myth of Ferrari, it wasn't built on luxury. It was built on poverty. Not on perfection, but on just gut-wrenching personal tragedy. And more than anything else, it was built on this relentless, all-consuming obsession. This is the story of Enzo Ferrari.
So, let's go back in time. We're in Modena, Italy, 1898. Enzo Ferrari wasn't born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Not even close. He was the son of a blacksmith, and he knew right away that his father's trade was not for him. His eyes were on something else entirely. This new, roaring invention, the automobile.
And then it happened. The one moment that would change everything. In 1908, Enzo's dad takes him to his very first car race. Now, you got to remember, in a world where cars were still brand new, he saw the speed, the danger, the glory of it all. And right then and there, a 10-year-old boy decided what he was going to do with his life. He was going to be a race car driver. But his dream, it was just brutally interrupted. World War I completely shattered his world. In 1916, his father died of pneumonia. Then, his brother died from a war-related illness. Just like that, at 18, his entire world was gone. And then, Enzo himself got the deadly Spanish flu. He was jobless, penniless, and totally alone. But somehow, he survived, determined to build a life from absolute scratch. So he heads to Turin, the heart of Italy's car industry, with one single goal. He walks right into the offices of Fiat, the biggest car company in the country, and asks for a job. And they turned him down. Cold. Can you believe that? The man who would one day build Ferrari was rejected by Fiat? That rejection left him practically homeless, but it didn't break him. Oh no, that rejection didn't break him. It just lit a fire under him. This next part of the story is all about how he channeled that fire. Enzo's first real break came from a small car maker called CMN. They hired him as a test driver. He started scraping together every penny he had to buy his own race car, and just started competing. Look, he wasn't the richest guy out there or even the most naturally gifted, but nobody could match his determination, and people started to notice. In 1920, he gets the call, the one that changed his whole career, an offer to join the legendary Alfa Romeo racing team. 3 years later, he wins his first big race, and it's there that he meets a countess, Paulina Baracca. Her son was a heroic World War I pilot who had painted a prancing horse on his plane. The countess told Enzo, "Put the horse on your car, for good luck." He did, and an icon was born. Okay, so back then, racing was basically a rich guy's hobby. Wealthy amateurs would buy cars and run their own teams, which were called a scuderia. The thing is, most of them were a mess, totally disorganized, totally unprofessional. But Enzo, who'd seen it all from the inside, he saw a massive opportunity. So in 1929, he starts Scuderia Ferrari, and his plan? It was absolutely brilliant. He basically becomes Alfa Romeo's unofficial racing division, so he gets their cars at a discount. Then, he does something nobody was really doing. He pioneers modern sponsorships, getting support from huge companies like Shell and Pirelli. And the final piece of the puzzle? He hired the absolute best drivers he could find. He was building a professional powerhouse. And it worked. Scuderia Ferrari became one of the most successful teams in all of Europe. But that single-minded obsession with winning, it came at a price, an immense, almost unbearable cost, both on the track and in his personal life. In 1932, his son Alfredo, who he always called Dino, was born. Dino was everything to him, his air, his joy, and he was just as passionate about engineering as his dad. But he had muscular dystrophy. Enzo searched desperately for a cure that just didn't exist. In 1956, Dino died. He was only 24. And the loss, it just shattered Enzo. He became a recluse, emotionally cut off, and wore those iconic dark sunglasses for the rest of his life. And on the track, his obsession hardened into pure stubbornness. See, new British teams were changing the game with these agile mid-engine cars. But Enzo,
he refused to adapt. He believed raw power and a great driver could overcome any design flaw. And because of that, he put this immense pressure on his drivers, basically demanding they push outdated, dangerous cars way past their limits just to get a win. And the results were just horrific. At the 1957 Mille Miglia race, a tire on a Ferrari blew out at over 150 miles an hour. The crash killed the driver, his co-driver, and 9 spectators, 5 of them children. Enzo was charged with manslaughter. The very next year, 2 more of his top drivers were killed in separate crashes. He became one of the most hated men in all of Italy.
The public backlash was brutal. It got so bad that even the Vatican condemned him, comparing him to the Roman god Saturn, who, in the myths, devoured his own children to hold on to his power. The man who brought glory to Italy was now seen as a monster.
Now, despite all the controversy, Ferrari was still winning. But winning is expensive, really expensive. By the early 1960s, the insane costs of racing had pushed the company right to the edge of bankruptcy, and that desperation opened the door for a very unlikely buyer, a giant from America. Ford comes in, offers $18 million to buy the company. Enzo agrees, but he has one rule, one non-negotiable condition. He would keep total, absolute control over the racing team. The deal was inches from being signed when Enzo found a hidden clause. It said Ford would have to approve his racing budget. Well, he absolutely exploded. I mean, he unleashed this storm of insults on the Ford executives and on Henry Ford II himself. The deal was dead.
A totally humiliated Henry Ford II flew back to America with a new mission. It wasn't business anymore. Oh no, this was personal. He wanted revenge, and he was going to get it at the world's biggest race, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, a race that Ferrari absolutely dominated.
Ford throws a mountain of cash at developing a new car, the GT40. But their first tries? An absolute disaster. In 1964 and 1965, not a single one of their cars even finished the race because of mechanical failures. And all the while, Enzo and his prancing horse just kept on winning, basically rubbing salt in Ford's wound. But Ford, they were relentless. After years of humiliating failures and constant work, they came back to Le Mans in 1966. And they didn't just win, they destroyed Ferrari. They took first, second, and third place. It was a historic, brutal 1-2-3 finish. Ford's revenge was absolute.
That loss to Ford, plus his own failing health, it forced Enzo to finally face reality. If he wanted his company to survive after he was gone, he had to do something he once thought was impossible. So in 1969, he sold 50% of his company to Fiat, the very same company that had turned him away all those years ago. Enzo passed away in 1988 at the age of 90, and for a while the company he built almost died with him. For years, it just struggled without his ruthless hand on the wheel. But then, in the 90s, a new era began. A visionary leader named Luca di Montezemolo took over, and he hired a once-in-a-generation German driver named Michael Schumacher. And together, they built a new dynasty, bringing Ferrari back to total Formula One dominance and cementing its place as the global icon we know today. So, who was Enzo Ferrari really? Was he a tyrant who pushed his drivers to their deaths just for his own selfish need to win? Or was he a resilient visionary who overcame unbelievable tragedy to build an empire from nothing? You know, the truth is, he was probably both. His obsession cost him his family, his reputation, and it nearly cost him his company. But that same all-consuming, ruthless drive, that's what forged one of the most powerful and enduring legends the world has ever known. It's the complicated, tragic, and triumphant soul that's baked into every single Ferrari.